Good morning, everybody. And good morning to those who are watching online around the country and around the world. There's a lot of vacationers and things. We hope you're having a great time, and welcome to all those these amazing people in the house. I used to go to Circus probably about 2 times a year. One of them, my dad would take my brother and I to Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. And then there was a next door neighbor that was involved in another circus that he would take us there. So, and there were a couple of places that kind of got my heart going more than, or the events that got my heart going more than the others. And one of them was the lion tamers. Man, I thought that was amazing, getting in there with lions. That's a bold man or woman that will do that, especially with all you have is a whip and a chair. But the other thing that used to get me really my heart pumping was the trapeze. And the reason that was incredible is somebody could get really, really, really hurt, right? And I remember when they started out and there would be no net under the trapeze, and the people would be doing some, a flip or, some minor things, but they'd never do something really, really big. Why would they not do some major event, up there without a net? Because there wasn't a net, right? There was no margin for error. If they blew it, they would be severely hurt or killed as a result of that. So, but I remember then they'd put the net out, and man, then it went off, right? I mean, then they would do some incredible things up there and go apart from each other and just flips and flips and flips, and it would be amazing. In fact, I remember one time that they were going to try a world record. At least that's what they told us. And so the person cut, I forget, it was 3 or 4 flips. I mean, it was just incredible and he missed. And he went flying down, but just landed on a net. And no harm, no foul. But then he went back up and he tried it again. And this time he got the world record. And let me ask you this. Do you think he would have done that if there was no net? Of course not, because he could have been killed. Same thing. In 1933, they started construction on the Golden Gate Bridge. And there were 11 people that fell to their death while they were making the bridge. And as you can imagine, the production went to a screeching halt just about, because people are watching their coworkers plunge to their death. So somebody had the genius idea to put a net underneath the entire Golden Gate Bridge as they were building that. And 19 people fell into the net. There's 19 people, they called it the Halfway to Hell Club. And so, and as you can imagine, after that, when there's safety there, suddenly production tripled because of that safety net. In the same way, without margin, without things, there's going to be a lot of stress. There's going to be a lot of, and production is going to wane as a result of that. Last week I told you that we gave you a survey several years ago, and here was one of the questions that we asked is this: what's the biggest thing you're struggling with? What's the number one thing you're struggling with? And you put several things on there, but the number one answer to that was trying to balance life's demands and all the things that life requires of you, trying to do the balance there. And last week we took a look and we said that the thing is, if we're going to balance our life, that we have to have God as the center of there. If you have anything else in your life and try to balance it with anything else as the number one thing in your life, your life is going to always be out of balance. You have to have God as the center of your life. And when you do that, it's amazing how things fall into place. And we said also that, making priorities, good priorities, that's how we balance our life. And not just having priorities, but living out those priorities. This time what we want to take a look at is the fact that if you don't have margin in your life, you're never going to have balance. Your life is never going to be in balance, because we were created that we need margin. And when a person says my life is out of balance, we're doing a series right now called Under the Big Top, and it's really taking the circus theme as a theme. And we're really going to be looking at that as just saying, how do we balance our life? How do we put that into balance? And when I say that, when somebody says my life is out of balance, the vast, vast majority of the time, here's what they're saying. They're saying, I am living to the edge. I'm living even past the edge a lot of times. And as a result, I am feeling stressed. I'm feeling tired. And I'm also not enjoying my friends. I'm not enjoying my job. I'm not enjoying life. I'm not enjoying my family in the way I want to, in the way I know God created it to be. And I'm feeling guilty because I know God usually takes a back seat if he's even in the car at all. We live in a society that beckons us to go to the edge. And I mean, just live life on the edge with no margin whatsoever. We do that financially, right? I mean, think of it. We live in a society and a culture that says spend to the uttermost. In fact, spend more than what you make. And think about what percentage of the people of our nation are in financial debt. And think of the stress that causes. When we don't have margin in our finances, we are going to live a stressed out life. In fact, 1 out of every 4 reasons for divorce that people give, the number one reason is financial difficulty, which adds to stress in the family. There's also that we just go to the edge when it comes to our calendar. What do we think? Why do we think we have to do everything to the most, and fill that calendar to the brim so we're stressed out in that? And another big one is this as well. We live to the moral edge as well, don't we? So many times, even Christians, they do this. They think, how close can I get to sin without actually sinning? How close can I get to that? And the result, so many times, what happens is the littlest push, and somebody finds themselves in a place they never thought they'd be. And they're down here and going, how did I get here? How did I end up down here? Well, it's easy. You got too close to the moral cliff. If you gave yourself some moral margin down here, you can still trip a little bit and you're not going to fall out. You're not going to be down there. We need to have margin in life. And we live in a world that says, don't have any margin whatsoever. And there's a cry in our heart to get margin. So here's the question. What is margin? When I talk about margin, what do I mean by that? Here's margin definition number 1. It's the amount available beyond what is actually needed. It's the extra or the reserve. And if you think about if you read a book, you realize that there is space at the top, right? There's space at the bottom. There's space to each side. What do we call that space? The margin. And in fact, if you've ever tried to read a book that did not have any margin in it, it's weird, it's freaky, and you don't want to read it. You just kind of go, there's something wrong with it. We need margin when we read a book. We also need margin when we drive, don't we? Have you ever been in a place where it seemed like that the road was exactly the same size as your car? And it just freaks you out when you do that, right? I remember driving one time in Ireland. And if you've ever driven in Ireland, a lot of times the road is so stinking narrow. And a lot of times on one side, there's a stone wall. And on the other side, you've got, cars coming here. And you realize because it's Ireland, about a third of the people are stoned too, right? And so I remember driving there for several hours and just this little thing, there's no margin for error whatsoever. And I remember actually when I stopped, I had to pry my fingers open because I'd had just this white knuckle grip. If you've ever driven and you've got the concrete barrier on one side and you've got a semi-truck on the other side, you realize how unfun that is to drive and how that takes away any pleasure whatsoever. And the stress level goes way, way up when you're there. You need margin. Somewhere else we need a margin is in personal space, right? Have you ever had somebody that just got into your personal space? And that's a weird feeling, isn't it? I remember I had a neighbor one time, and she was a wonderful lady, just incredible, just got along great, and she meant nothing by this whatsoever, but she would get, she'd just get closer and closer and closer. And I remember one time we started a conversation on her front porch, and we ended up 50 yards away on my front porch because I just kept backing up a little. There was another man in my first church that was just a wonderful, wonderful old man, but he'd get up right here. That's freaky, y'all. And you can smell what he had for lunch. You can almost taste what he had for lunch when somebody gets that close. We need margin. And we understand that. We understand that physically. Why don't we understand that financially? Why don't we understand that spiritually? Why don't we understand that emotionally? Why do we understand that? And then margin definition number 2 is margin is the space between our current performance and our limits. It's saying, here's what you could do. And the margin is saying, okay, here's what you actually do. An example of that, I used to do triathlons. And in especially a long distance triathlon, I wouldn't swim as fast as I could. I wouldn't run as fast as I could. I wouldn't bike as fast as I could. Why? If I tried to do that, I'd only go a little way and I'd tucker out, right? In fact, I remember one time running in a 10K, and there just happened to be about 10 or 15 teenage girls that were running also. And we happened to be next to each other. The gun goes off, and they start in a dead sprint. I mean, they are absolutely running as fast as they can, like it was a 100-yard dash. And I thought, I'm going to see you soon. I'm going to see you soon. And sure enough, about less than a half a mile away, they had stopped and everything. Why? You need to pace yourself on things like that. You need a margin. We understand that again in other things. We need to understand that in life. Bad things happen when we don't have margin. First of all is our stress levels increase, doesn't it? I want to give you 2 scenarios, and I want you to put yourself in both of these scenarios. You have to go to something really, really important, a very important event, a very important meeting. Maybe it's your finals or something in school. I mean, it's really, really important. You need to be there. And so because it's so important, here's scenario number 1. You give yourself about a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour to make sure you get there on time. Scenario number 2, you see what the GPS says, and you leave yourself exactly the time to get there. And you know that each one of us have done both of these things, don't we? So now on this one over here, now imagine this. So the person over here, there's a traffic jam. What's the person over here feeling like? He may be a little stressed, okay, that didn't give me as much time, but I still got plenty of time. Thank goodness I gave myself margin. But now this person over here, they're only supposed to get there at the exact same time. They know they're going to be late at this point. What is their stress level going to be? There's no fun in driving. Their stress level is going to be through the roof, right? Let's give something else, another scenario. You got a couple, 2 different couples. Couple number 1 is every paycheck, every month, they give themselves some margin. They put a little bit aside. They may not make all that money, but they put a little bit aside for savings. They put a little bit aside for a rainy day. This couple over here, they are living out to the max. In fact, they're living a little over the max. First of all, who do you think is going to have less stress, financial stress on their marriage, on their life? I mean, this is a whole lot easier way to live. They may not have quite as much stuff, but they're going to enjoy it a whole lot more than this over here. Now, this over here, suddenly there's an unexpected bill, maybe a medical bill or something with the car or something. These people are going to go, there's going to be some stress there, a little bit of stress. They're going to go, man, alive. Okay, but thank God we have that bumper. Thank God we have that margin. These over here, they're going to add stress on top of stress on top of stress on top of stress, aren't they? Another thing is this, the 2 facts about stress. The smaller the margin, the greater the stress level. And when the margin decreases, our stress level increases. Now, this is something we know when that God created us. God created us with needing margin. Almost all of us probably have a car with a tachometer. If you have a car, it's probably got a tach on it. Go ahead and throw that up there. If you see this, a tachometer, you've got all the black area to the left side of the yellow. If you've got your car in that, if you're revving your car, this is how many revolutions per minute your car is doing. If you've got it to that side, in modern day engines, you're going to be able to drive that thing for hundreds of thousands of miles. And sometimes there's the yellow. That means you're revving it a little over what it's supposed to do. And sometimes you need to do that. If you're passing a car, right, and everything to try to get past a car, maybe you rev that into the yellow. And maybe weird occasionally you get it to the red. But if you're in the yellow for very long, what's going to happen to the car? car's going to start breaking down, right? And if you're in the red, that car's going to blow up. That engine cannot take it. We know that just like an engine, God created us with limits. And if we do it within that area that he created of the sweet spot, we can go and go and go. And there's going to be moments of stress. There's going to be times of stress. But there's going to be the yellow thing, right? There's going to be those times where you just got to hunker down and it's a stressful time, a little maybe tax season or this or this or this or something happening at school, midterms, finals, something like that. And there's a little more stress in there. But you can't keep that very long. If you keep doing that in the yellow, you're going to start breaking down. You're going to start falling apart. And you get into the red and you start living there for a while where you're stressed out of your gourd, it's going to take a big toll on your health, emotional and physical health, and you're going to break down. Another thing is this, and the Bible says this: overwork makes for restless sleep. Also, our enjoyment level decreases too. When there's no margin for life, here's what happens. Work that you'd normally love, you don't enjoy it anymore. People become a pain instead of a joy. Ministry becomes a pain. Also, here's the big one. The blessings of life, you don't stop and smell the roses. I mean, think of it. I remember there was one place that I had to go one time, and there's roses all around, and there's this beautiful lake, and I remember I'm so busting it to try to get to the other side. I thought, I just missed all those roses. I just missed this beautiful thing. And in the same way, sometimes we just bust it through life so much, and we don't stop and see the blessings that God has given us. We don't even enjoy all those wonderful things, all the blessing that's God given us, because all we're doing is focus on, got to get through this, got to get through this, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. Another thing is this, the Bible says this: better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with worried work. More is not always better. And our focus becomes self-centered too, doesn't it? That when we have no margin, we become extremely selfish with our time, with our finances, with everything. An example of this would be if you're just walking with a friend and you're walking along a path, you're walking on the street and there's plenty of space on either side. You can talk, you can have a conversation, you can really focus on them. But what happens when all of a sudden you're taking a walk and there's like a cliff on either side? Here's a picture that I took at the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland. And there's not much space there. And this is how thin it is said that the Irish do not believe in guardrails, they believe in natural selection. And so as I'm walking this, there's not much room for error. And I'm not talking as much to my friends as I would be if there's plenty of things. And I remember another time, just shortly after this, a couple days after this, I'm walking and we're going out into this jetty that goes out into the North Sea. And it's about this wide, and that's all you got. And on this side, there's a fall off, and you're going to fall to your death over here. There's going to fall out over here. I didn't talk. I'm just paying attention to where I'm going, right? The thinner the margin, the more selfish you become. Let me ask you this. If you have no financial margin, are you going to be selfish with your money, or are you going to be generous with your money? If you have no margin in your calendar, are you going to be selfish with your time, or are you going to be generous with your time? It makes a big difference. We become self-focused. Another thing is our relationships suffer. In order to swim, you need water. In order to start a fire, you need oxygen. In order to have intimacy, in order to have relationship, in any relationship, you need time. In fact, somebody said this, that busyness is to intimacy what kryptonite is to Superman. And I think it's true. Some things to consider. First, God created you with limits. You've got limits in every area of your life. Every single person that's hearing my voice online and right now, you have financial limits. There's only so much you can spend because there's only so much you have, or there's so much you make. You have financial limits. You also have physical limits. Now, some of you are hosses, and maybe you're strong. You can maybe bench press 400 pounds, something incredible like that. But you have limits. There's only so much you can only lift that amount. And every person that's hearing my voice, you can only be in one place at a time. You have limits. You have emotional limits as well. Now, some people have very little emotional limits, and it's just like it doesn't take much to crush them, but you've got an emotional limit. There's other people that you've got a bunch. You've got a lot of them emotional limit, but you could be like a car, that even that thing with so much strength and so much weight and all that, if you put enough pressure on it, it is going to crush like a tin can. In the same way that if we take pressure after pressure after pressure, there's only so much pressure you can take as a human being before it crushes you. And another thing is God created us as relational beings. Jesus said this, the number one thing, the most important thing is what we talked about over here. Loving God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And the second thing is to love your neighbor as yourself. And if God is saying the most important thing you could ever do is love him and love people, then that means God wants you to make time for people and for God. And if you're too busy for God in a day or for a week, you're too busy. If you're too busy for people and relationships, you're too busy, because God created us for both of those things. The third thing is God mandates margin. I mean, he gives 10 commandments, 10, and one of them says you're going to have margin in your life. And here it is. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you should labor, do what you did, do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. He's saying there's one day a week that you absolutely put God first, because you need to be refreshed. You need to be encouraged. You need to be challenged spiritually. And he also says that don't work. In fact, you know what he said after this? He said your animals don't even work. Because this was a culture that he said, even your horses, your ox, your things like that, you give them one day of rest because their body needs to rest. And our body needs to rest. And our emotions need to rest. And we need to be encouraged. We put God first, and we also take it easy. And let our hair down. Enjoy it. Be refreshed in life. And also he's saying, in tithe, he's saying, you have to have margin in your finances too. You don't live on 100%. You live on 90%, and you watch me. You put me at the center, and you watch what I do with the other. In other words, he is saying this: I command you to not go and go and go and go and go. I know what you can do, but I don't want you to do that. And that's the other thing is this. I remember one time reading about this, and it blew me away. There was a person on the edge of a building, and with all it looked like going to jump off to end their life. There was a group of people at the bottom, and the people were yelling to jump. That blows me away. I've never understood that. If that doesn't prove that we need a Savior and a Lord in our life, I don't know what does, that we would want to see, that there's people that would want to see the death of another human being. But there's another group that they came in, and they were homeless people. And they came up and they started shouting to the person not to jump. And they started giving the person hope and reasons why they should live. Isn't that weird dynamic that each one did that? But here's the thing. This group started to have a fist fight with this group over here because they didn't want them to say that anymore. And if that's not a picture of our culture, I don't know what is. Because our culture says, live to the edge, live to the edge, live to the edge, live to the edge. And God says, don't live to the edge. Don't come back from the edge. I know what you can do, but I'm calling you back from living that kind of life. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, I'm too busy. This is the weird thing. I'm too busy to have margin. And other people are thinking, I will find margin in my life someday. And if we don't make margin, we're not going to find margin. And the other thing is this too, is I have seen a man who had a heart attack that suddenly found margin he didn't think he had. I've seen a lady who was about to lose her marriage that suddenly had margin that she didn't think she had. We make time for the things that are most important in life, and that be God or other people. Maybe you can relate to Isaiah when he said this in Isaiah chapter 49. I've used up all my strength, and I've accomplished nothing. How many times do we just feel like we're in that hamster wheel and go, and we look around and go, what did I even do? And maybe you're thinking, okay, I realize that. What do I do about it? Here it is. Here are some ways to develop more margin, or first to have any margin in your life. First, give God control of your calendar. Listen to these words and see how practical the Bible is. He says this, so here's what I want you to do. God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. And he says, you do that, you give me the calendar, you watch what happens in life. All those other things, they're going to be added unto you if you seek first me. Now, I know that's a scary thought as I say that, especially for everybody in here, everybody watching that's a type A personality, or you're a performance-oriented person that you accomplish. Nothing wrong with either of those. God created you both of those ways. But here's a lot of times if I really gave God my calendar, I wouldn't get as much done. That's what you're thinking. And but let's see if that dog will hunt, okay? Let's see if that really is true. And if you believe that you can do a better job of handling your calendar, here's some things to consider. First of all, God knows the future. God knows everything that's going to happen this week. God knows everything that's going to happen tomorrow. God knows everything that's going to happen today. You don't. And the thing is, nothing ever has taken God by surprise. A lot of things take us by surprise, doesn't it? And the Bible says this, it's a warning about putting our faith in our calendar. It says this in James 4. Listen, those of you who are boasting, today or tomorrow, we'll go to another city and spend some time and go into business and make heaps of profit. But you don't have a clue what tomorrow may bring. For your fleeting life is but a warm breath of air that is visible on a cold day only for a moment, and then it vanishes. Instead, you should say, our tomorrows are in the Lord's hands. And if he is willing, we will live life to its fullest, and we'll do this or that. You and I don't know what tomorrow holds, but if we give our life to the one who holds tomorrow and give him the calendar, we're going to see things work out in a better way. Job reminds us of this. This is a sobering word right here. He says to God, you have decided the length of our lives. You know how many months we have to live, and we are not given a minute longer. Your days are numbered. My days are numbered. And if our days are numbered, which they are, and if we're going to spend every moment of every day doing something, which we will be, and if God knows not only the future, but God knows everything about your future, and if God not only invented time, but he knows exactly how much time you have left, and he knows exactly the best way you should spend your time, and the best way I should spend my time, and he knows the best decisions, doesn't it make sense to say, God, here, you take the calendar? And he says that this is going to be fun, okay? He runs the universe, so he's probably capable of running your life and my life, right? And I'm going to ask you questions, and raise your hand. I want to see the show of hands on this. How many of you have ever locked your keys in the car or lost your keys? All right, just about every hand going up there. How many of you have ever walked into a room and forgot why you went into that room? Okay, it gets more as the older you get, doesn't it? And how about this one? How many looked everywhere for your glasses and you discovered that they were on your head? How many laughed when you didn't hear somebody, what they said to you, and then you realized that they had just asked you a question? Raise your hand. How about this? How many of you ever waved at somebody who you realized wasn't waving at you? How many waved or talked to somebody you thought you knew, and then you discovered that it wasn't the person that you knew? One time this worked out well for me. Okay, so I'm in college, and I remember I'd met this girl right before Christmas break, right before summer break, and I thought this one girl that was sitting there by herself was that girl. So I came up, and I'm talking to her and everything. How's your summer? How you doing? How's things? And everything. And then all of a sudden, about 30, 40 minutes later, put my stuff away, and I start walking down from the cafeteria, and all of a sudden coming up the stairs, I saw the girl that I thought was this girl in here. So I come up, I went back in there, and I thought, man, you must have thought I was crazy. I am so sorry. I thought you were somebody else. She said, I just thought you were real nice. And we started dating is what we did. How about this one? How many of you ever pushed on a door that you're supposed to pull, or pulled on a door you thought you were... Okay, and how about this one? This happened to me once and only once. I asked another person about that. They said it happened once and only once. How many of you have asked a non-expecting lady when she was due? Put your hand up. Come on, God bless you. Only once, right? Only once. Do we ever do that? And if you think you can handle life better than God, think about we can't even figure out where our glasses are or things like that. And how about this one too, that you can't even control your hair in the morning, can you? And we expect that the God of the universe can't do a better job of controlling our life than that. Something else is God is a God of productivity, isn't he? Huge productivity. God created everything. That's productive, right? God created, Jesus did everything, the whole ministry that he did all that in 3 years. He did more in 3 years than you and I are going to do in the rest of our life put together. And the weird thing is, the amazing thing is that he was not only productive, so incredibly productive, but you never see him panicked. You never see him stressed. You never see him rushed. In fact, what you do see him is you see him spending time with kids and praying for them. You see him kicking back with his disciples. You see him going to weddings. You see him considering the birds of the air and the flowers of the field, and he's never stressed. And yet he was so incredibly productive. Giving our calendars to God, it's not going to make us less productive. It's going to make us more productive. And here's something else. The second thing is this, is realize you can't do everything, and God never intended you to do everything. Jesus didn't do everything, right? I mean, there were times every night when Jesus went to bed, there was more people he could have healed. There's more sermons he could have preached. Every night, but he just said, all right, we're done for the day. You're not expected to do everything. And what compels us to try to do that? I think, first of all, it's FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. We think if we don't do everything, we're going to miss out. Our kids are going to miss out. Everything's going to miss out. And so as a result is not only do you not have to do everything, your kids don't have to do everything. There's people, some of you that have come up to me and said, man, we have our kids in so many activities and sports and this and this and this and this and this. And they're stressed and we're stressed and our family's stressed. And God, let's be honest, just taking a back seat. I'm not saying not to put your kids in things because that's important to make them well-rounded and things they enjoy life and stuff. Just do it in moderation and just remember who's in charge to make sure that God is the center of whatever they're doing. I learned that, one time a friend of mine came up to me just a short time ago and he's from another state and he said this, he said, I had my kids involved in everything, 3 boys. And he said, we had them involved in every activity. We had them involved in all these basketball leagues and baseball leagues, and we had them involved in all these things. And he said, here's the wild thing, is he said they never made it to the major leagues. They never made it to the NBA. They never made it to anything with tennis. But I'll tell you what else they didn't make it to. They never made it to church. And right now, I can't get them to go to church for anything. That they have God is not in their life at all. And he said these words I'll never forget. I think we had the wrong priorities growing up. Also, give yourself permission to rest and enjoy life. Listen to what Solomon says. I love this. This is straight out of the Word of God. He says, however many years a person may live, let them enjoy them all. And another thing, he said this, seize life. Eat bread with gusto. Drink wine with a robust heart. Oh, yes, God takes pleasure in your pleasure. Have you ever thought of that? God created pleasure, and he enjoys it when you have pleasure. Said this, dress festively every morning. Don't skimp on colors or scarves. Relish life with your spouse you love each and every day of your precarious life. Another thing is put margin in every week and put it in every day. Every week, give yourself some margin. It's a commandment. Do it every day, too. I hope you have some time alone with God, some tag time every day. Because there's times every day we need to be a human being. We need to spend time remembering who we are and be still and know that he is God. We need time to just be a human being and remember and just let our hair down. Time with God, time with whatever that's going to refresh you and relax you. Another thing, but I think that's every day. I think throughout a day, that we're sometimes just every hour or so at work or school, just remember, thank you, God, that I'm alive. Just remember who you are. Remember, just enjoy. Take a deep breath and just remember that God created life for enjoyment. Another thing is this, is only carry what Jesus wants you to carry. Listen to these words. These are Jesus to you right now. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And we can either put our own burden on us, we can put society's burden on us, we're going to stress out and freak out and everything, or we can just take what God gives us and say that because with his help, we're going to be able to handle it. Not without it, but with his help, he's never going to give us more with him than we can handle. And so here's the things. Give God control of your calendar. Realize you can't do everything, and you're not supposed to do everything. Give yourself permission to rest and enjoy this life that God has given you. Put margin in every week and put some margin in every day to just be a human. Only carry what Jesus wants you to carry. And if we do that, some things are going to happen. 5 things are going to happen. You're going to have way more margin in life. You're going to have way less stress in life. You're going to focus a lot more on the world around you because you're not going to be so selfishly focused. We can be way more productive, and we can enjoy life a whole lot more. And this life that God has given us doesn't have to be quite a circus.